It's the power of Christ that compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. I gotta tell you, I am amazed that this is how we're gonna be kicking off this new year, 2024, starting off with one hell of a bang. This is the Alphahunter Tactical Design and Mechforce collaboration called the Apocalypse. And I gotta tell you, I could not be more excited to come out here and show you a knife than I am with this one. And for a lot of reasons. Number one, because the knife is truly awesome. I have been playing with a prototype of this knife since about October. As of right now, this is January 2nd of 2024. So I've been carrying and playing and testing a prototype for a number of months now, and I haven't been allowed to show that one publicly, and I still can't because the variation that they prototyped it in, they're not going to be offering for sale. And the worst thing that you can do is to show something publicly that's really, really cool and then not offer it for sale because that's the one everybody's going to want. So what I will say is this: the entire knife is the same, except the inlay material is going to be quite a bit different from the prototype that I was handling. And man, it was cool. It was one of my favorite carbon fibers of all time. But what is going to be available, I have to tell you, is just as exciting. First up is going to be this bad boy right here. This is the Silver Twill. This will be an exclusive to NCblade when these are released. So let's talk about that first before we get into anything else. These are going to be releasing in just a couple of weeks. Sometime during January of 2024, these will be released to the public and you will be able to purchase them. And I'll give you a list of participating dealers very shortly here. But what I want to do is talk about how cool this knife is and why I am so excited. Alphahunter Tactical Design, his name is Chad. He is a preacher and a solid longtime member of the knife and EDC community. And Chad has collaborated with several makers over the years to create some of his designs. And probably the most recognizable is the Warhorse. Some have been full customs and some others, I believe, have just been mid-techs. But this new collaboration with Mechforce is probably the highest quality that I've personally handled, and is definitely the best value. This thing is something else. And this Apocalypse model is based on an older design of Chad's that was very, very limited. Actually, really only a few were ever made. And they were quite expensive. These will not be, thank goodness. Now, partnering with Mechforce was one of the best ideas that he's had in a while. Look at the quality of the torches that they produce. This is the Mech Torch. I've had this one for, I want to say, about a year. And you guys know I have spent a tremendous amount of money on very high-end flashlights, up into the many thousands of dollars per flashlight. And this is one of the nicest and easiest to use that I've ever had. And Mechforce has a pretty nice price on these. They don't go crazy overboard, except for their designs. Their designs are crazy and overboard, and works very, very well. Anyway, let's get that out of the way. And you guys might remember my knife of the year for 2023. That also happened to be a Mechforce, and that was the collaboration with Tashi called the Son of Sam, the SOS. And still to this day, I am carrying this one quite a lot. I absolutely love this knife. Quite a few people have commented on that video that I put up, which was in December, and commented about how they got theirs and that Everything that I said was true. It was one of the best knives that was currently available. And if I'm not mistaken, these are all sold out now. But yeah, that's the level of quality that we're talking about here. And they keep upping their game from knife to knife to knife to knife. They keep getting better and better and better. And they've already caught up with and surpassed many of the biggest names that we recognize in this community for semi-affordable, high-quality production knives. And there's a long list. If you're shopping in that, let's say, $300 to $600 price range in production knives, that you're looking for exceptional quality, incredible actions, perfect detents, incredible build quality, fit and finish that far exceeds their price points, there are certain names that will come to mind. And the only reason I'm not saying them is because I don't believe that Mechforce would actually want someone to come out and make a direct comparison of their knives to these other companies and say they're better than these people and these people and these people, because you know how people are on the internet. They'll see somebody like me, I'm reviewing knives. I don't work for Mechforce, and they'll say Mechforce said that they're better than this brand, this brand, and this brand. So I'm trying to be mindful of that and respectful of that. Plus, these other brands are also brands that I happen to love, and I would not like them to think that I'm, trying to disrespect them in any way. But Mechforce, it just keeps getting better and better and better and better, and they've done so in such a small time frame, and I think that's what's amazing. When we talk about brands like Reich Knife, you guys know I love Reich, and where they were 6 or 7 years ago is a far cry from where they are now. But the big leap that they made, they've really only made in the past 2 years. It's like they hopped into a time machine and then bam, dropped off something new. And we were like, what in the world? How? How did this brand do these amazing things that we weren't aware that they could do? But it took them a long time to get there. But it was overnight when it happened. It was like, one day they're doing some really cool knives, and then they go to Blade Show one year, and then what they brought was just something entirely different. Mechforce, we have not watched develop over that many years. Mechforce came out with the M1 only a few years ago. I don't know exactly when, but I got my hands on one just about 2 years ago. And I thought it was a pretty cool knife. It wasn't jaw-dropping amazing, but it had a cool factor to it, and it was built well. It had a nice action, good materials, and all around it was a solid knife. And if you go back and watch my video on it, you'll see that I wasn't, goo-goo gaga crazy about it. I just really liked it, and I thought it was an overlooked knife and a pretty good value for something that most people had never even heard of. I thought it was really, really cool, but it wasn't like you saw how I reacted to the Tashi. That was a completely different response. This is still a darn cool knife, but it doesn't hold a candle to what this Apocalypse is. The Apocalypse is awesome. It's got a really, really nice feel in the hand. Nice and beefy without being ridiculously crazy, chunky, and overbuilt. And for those of you that have collected Alphahunter designs over the past 10 or so years, 10, 12 years now, I guess, you know that most of them were crazy, overbuilt, very, very heavy, tough to carry as an EDC, but they became prominent in a time where overbuilt knives were really making their mark. Especially brands like Direware and Medford and brands like that, where it was, they were basically, folding shovels. They were big chisels that folded in the middle and had a flipper tab. That was so popular at that time, and Chad's designs really worked well for that tough, kind of tank-like build that they had. And this is a far cry from that. Again, while it still has a beefiness to it, and it certainly has a robustness, and you feel that when you've got it in your hand, it's not crazy. This, by the way, the blade stock on this is 172 thousandths thick. Now, back in the old days, you'd see knives that were 200, 225, 250 thousandths thick as commonplace for these overbuilt knives, and that's not where this is at. And they could have very easily done that, and I think they could have done it well, but that's not where Chad decided to go. Now, I've been showing you this Texalium inlay version, the silver twill, because that was the one I've kind of been showing to everybody in my photography and everything else over the past few weeks. My favorite, the one that's going in my collection, is this one, the 80s carbon fiber. It is wicked cool. It is wild. And I realize the bubblegum pink color in there and the bright colors that are going on here may not appeal to everyone. And it's certainly in sharp contrast to the overall design of this knife. But I'm a product of the 80s. I was born in the mid-70s, so I grew up in the 80s during my more formative years. I love retro 80s themed things. I like this whole look a lot. This is the one that I think most people are going to jump on first. I think that is going to be the first one to sell out. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of silver twill. I love Texalium. It is one of my absolute favorite materials in the knife game. So much so that when I came out with my Caladan last year, that was the first one that I had in my head to do. It was also the first one to sell out, unfortunately. Went very quickly, and pretty much anytime anybody does anything in Texalium, it goes quickly. And it's not done enough. It's not seen nearly often enough in the knife world these days. If you go back, maybe 2015, 2016, a lot of knives were being offered in the silver twill. But it's just not seen that much anymore. So when somebody does finally wise up and go, hey, I remember people love that material, let's put that into our knife. When somebody finally does it, it sells out super fast. And another great thing is it's unique, just like having Timascus or Mokutai, without having the tremendous expense. You're looking at something that's going to always be in the same realm price-wise as a carbon fiber. So, yeah, that's a good reason for them to sell out very, very quickly. Oh, man, this thing is wicked, wicked cool. Big, giant fuller going down the blade. This kind of triangular tip that the grinds are all intersecting at. It's a unique design. But it is a little bit reminiscent. There was a Robert Carter design. Rob did this many years ago. Very similar, except his design didn't come down quite nearly as much here. It came out a little bit more straight for the spine, and he didn't have this arrowhead kind of tip grind going on here, where this compound grind is meaning you've got this hollow grind, you've got the flat grind here, and a flat grind for a very prominent swedge up that harpoon. And that's really what makes this knife unique. It's where everything converges right here that makes it look so radical, that makes it look so, mean in some way, which is funny, being designed by a preacher, that it would look so mean and so crazy. But, just because he's a man of God doesn't mean he's not a man of style. And he's definitely got some great style. Now, for those that need to see specs, let's go ahead and get into that. I think I can fit everything on the screen here. I'm going to put everything up here on the side, but it's not going to be up there for very long. I don't want to make this too crazy long. You are looking at a titanium frame lock with full-length inlays on both sides. That is not often seen. Overall length of just about 8 inches, blade length of 3.5 inches. It is an M390 at 172 thou thick. And everything that you see on this frame is titanium. Your pivot, your hardware, your back spacer, your pocket clip. And yes, the back spacer does have a hidden lanyard post in there as well. So, is it running on bearings? Well, of course it is. And it's super slick. It runs so beautifully. It is so smooth. And it's not like a guillotine where it's just dropping uncontrollably, where you feel like you've got to get your thumb out of the way. First off, when you're unlocking the frame lock, the first thing to hit you is going to be the flipper tab anyway. And then you get past that, and it's a slow, controlled drop all the way closed, which feels like butter. It's beautiful. The detent strength is perfect. It's wonderfully crisp. I will tell you this, as we all know, with any frame lock, no matter who makes it and how much it is, if you have your fingers on the frame lock, that pushes the detent ball into the detent hole on the blade and makes it nearly impossible to open. But this knife has a very sharp detent in that manner. So if you have any pressure on it at all, you're not going to be able to reverse flick it off the fuller, and you're not going to be able to thumb flick it off of the thumb stud. So please keep that in mind when you first receive your knife and you're like, I don't know, I'm able to flip it with the flipper tab, but I can't flick it with my thumb and I can't reverse flick it. It's because you're applying pressure on the lock bar. I mean, even the slightest amount of pressure. Ugh, there we go. See, even just the sight of my finger on there, it didn't want to do it. But it is perfectly tuned to be a flipper, and it works exceptionally well. I just want to make sure that you understood when you first get it, don't have anything sitting on that lock bar or it ain't going to open in the other two deployment methods. And that's the other thing, too. I do like the fact that there are multiple deployment methods on this. So you got the flipper tab, the thumb studs, and the monstrous-sized fuller, and that is a deep fuller. And I like the combination of finishes as well. You've got this hand rub satin going down the flats. You have this very rough finish. That's not a straight up machine finish as far as I'm aware. At least I've never seen one like that. It doesn't appear to be bead blasted because it's a much rougher finish than most bead blasting would be. And then you have a stone washed finish for all of the bevels. I'm not entirely certain how they got this particular finish, but it is cool as a contrast, definitely is. In the finger choil, they have chamfered the edges so that you're able to get in there and not have any sharp edges up against your fingers. Good idea as always. Oh man, look how great those two look together and how beefy and tough they look. Oh boy. And yeah, man, that 80s carbon fiber, for me, that's just the way to go. That is absolutely the way to go. Now, I want to make you guys aware of something very quickly. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to edit this in and type this in toward the beginning of the video as well. So unfortunately, by the time you're getting to see this now, you have already been made aware of that information. But I am starting up a second channel on YouTube. It's going to be called Jim's Quick Cuts. And what that's going to be is that is going to be extraordinarily brief reviews, very, very quick reviews for those that don't want all the information, that don't need to hear everything and all the details and the stories behind the makers and the designs and anything like that. Just simply, here's the specs. Is the knife good? Is the knife not good? Does it do this? Does it do that? Probably going to be 5 minutes or less on those reviews. So please go look for it and subscribe. I would love to build up that channel as well. And also, I got to drop the reminder here. Please subscribe here. I've been looking at my analytics, and it appears that the vast majority of people that watch my videos are not subscribed. And that's just mind-blowing to me. So please do subscribe, because not only is that good for me to have, big subscriber numbers, it's internet clout. But what happens is with YouTube's algorithm, every time somebody clicks subscribe, the YouTube algorithm goes, huh, there's somebody interested in this channel's content. Let's start pushing that content out to people that subscribe to things that this person typically subscribes to. And then my videos will get shown to other people that would not normally come across them. And then that helps my channel, and that helps me bring out more good stuff to you. Because there was a time when mine was one of the biggest channels, or the biggest for a little while, and I was able to bring out just knife after knife after knife after knife because I had a large audience to share that with. And now, because I don't do things quite the same way a lot of other YouTubers do, my channel is no longer at the top of the subscriber count. So I don't get to make quite as many videos as I would like to. But I do plan on changing that up this year and just pushing as hard as I can to put out as much content as humanly possible, because I love to share this stuff with you guys. In particular, I love to share stuff that you're not aware of. And this is one of those knives that, unless you have already been following Mechforce on Instagram, you don't even know this knife exists. And I am so amazed at how cool this knife is. And I know that this is going to make a lot of people really, really happy when they get one in their collection. Super smooth, still a beastly feeling knife without being ridiculously heavy and without being ridiculously overbuilt. Every edge on this handle is nicely chamfered and then softened a little bit on top of that. It just, everything feels so good. As a matter of fact, since I mentioned that, I should probably grab my scale and weigh these things and let you know exactly what they weigh.